Hey there, welcome to The Realtor Edgar, your ultimate guide to everything real estate in the vibrant city of Las Vegas. Are you dreaming of a new home or curious about the latest market trends? You're in the right place. Now let's get on with this video. The next step. So now, we apply and everything, and a lot of people think, okay, I don't have 20%. Is 20% the norm nowadays, or are there different ways to do it? What's the pros and cons of putting more money down versus just the minimum?
That's still kind of the age-old number that a lot of people throw around, but no, you don't need 20% down. FHA is only 3.5%. And there are a lot of local programs we have here in the state of Nevada that can literally cover your entire down payment to purchase a home. Now, if you have 20% down, great, that's an option for you. Do you have to put it down? No, not necessarily. You can put 5, 10, 15, or 20. A lot of the down payments are based in increments of 5%. So you just have to look at, again, what works for you. Is it worth putting an extra $40,000 down to save you maybe a few $100s a month? Or do you take maybe a slightly higher payment, knowing that you have moving costs and you have other expenses that go into your home, that you'd rather have some cash on hand versus dumping it all into the house? Because here's the problem a lot of people will make. And we've seen a lot of this year where they get so interest rate focused, they pay more money, they're buying points, they're paying extra costs to get a lower interest rate. A year goes by, and then guess what? They don't have any money saved. So you know what they do? Hey, Sean, can I refinance my house? Why are we refinancing your home? You just beat me up on the interest rate last year to get into your house,
Yeah.
right? And here's a
I think it's
crazy
that
story.
tunnel vision, that
It
tunnel vision
is.
of just rates, rates, rates.
And that's why it's such a misleading thing for so many people. I had a client back when rates were in the threes or twos and threes, bought a home, beat me up on the interest rate. He was just grinding me to get the lowest rate possible. So we ended up making a deal work. He was shopping us, right? He was talking to like 3 other lenders. We ended up making a deal work for him. A year goes by, calls me and he's like, "Hey, I want to refinance my house." I was like, "For what?" He's like, "I want to take some equity out." It's like, "Why do you want to take equity out? You just bought it." He's like, "Well, I want to pay off some bills and stuff." Bro, you literally grinded me to get you 2.25, and now you want to take 5% because you didn't manage your money well. So that's why the down payment is really dependent upon you as the buyer and your budget and making sure that the payment works for you, not the interest rate, the payment. And I know they're tied together, but does that monthly payment work for you? If it
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't,
that's what people do when they shop rents. They don't go, "Hey, what can I afford? How much a month is in my budget?" And that's, I think, that's the key thing that I like to ask people is like, "Well, what's the interest rate?" I'm like, "Well, what do you want to pay a month?" Like,
yeah,
we can work on that, and then we can put you in a position where you're comfortable. Because
yeah,
in a lot of cases, being on the real estate age, a lot of people be like, "Well, I qualify for 480,000. Can I go start looking at those homes?" Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you okay with that payment? Because once we put in that offer and you guys send over that picture of what it's going to look like with a down payment, with closing costs, and then their monthly, they're like, "What is this?" Like,
yeah.
see, this is why we need to, like you said, put a plan together and then feel comfortable on that and then move forward from that point.
And I think, even with that process, working with a good team is so important. Team being the lender and your real estate agent. Because if let's say your real estate agent is a little inexperienced, the lender doesn't communicate anything. They could say, "Hey, this person's approved." You take them out shopping because you're just so happy you got a client that's approved and go ready to go. And then, like you said, you're going to put them in contract, and then they're going to get sticker shock because no one covered anything with them, and that deal just falls apart. The buyer feels like they got taken advantage of, or maybe they feel like, "Oh, it's not my time." But a lot of that has to be addressed up front. And I think that's another really important thing for people to understand, that the relationship between the lender and the real estate agent is very important, because if either of them don't communicate or they don't know how each other works, um, I'm sure you see it all the time, right? Deals fall apart and it gets nasty when that happens.
And I've run into that situation with people shopping lenders where they found a lender that could do it, and it ended up being like, okay, we could do it. And going into the after putting in that offer, getting it accepted, I'm in a situation where we're like ready to close, and this lender is barely getting to me. Hey, turns out I can't do it at that. Like, oh, see, this is where we should have communicated from the very beginning, and it goes to that point where you're like, okay, did you do your homework? Because if you're just going to go on the first lender that says, sure, I'll approve you at that, just based on their verbal confirmation
Yep.
versus actually taking it. And I've run into those where they're like, well, they told me. And yeah, they could, they can fabricate a pre-approval letter, send it over to me. But I like the way, working with you guys give us all those numbers, you give us everything we need so that we present that as a team, like you said, where we have communicated, me and you, or somebody on our team, somebody on your team, and now we can communicate that to the client versus just he said, she said.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, as far as programs right now that are going on, you mentioned one that said that you don't need is are should people shop just based on programs? Because a lot of, I'm guilty, just as guilty as an agent, because we hear about this new shiny thing, new shiny syndrome, where it's like, oh, this loan just came out and it's awesome and it offers this, but then we don't understand the back end of it, how it's actually gonna play out towards the end. What is your advice on those kind of not deals, excuse me, those kind of offers?
Anything that sounds potentially too good to be true, you definitely want to do some research, and that can go for down payments required, that can go for interest rates that are advertised. So you definitely want to do your homework, but in most cases, every lender is almost playing with the same deck of cards. We all have access to almost the same programs. It's very rare that you have somebody offering something that nobody else has, unless that's an internal program that they've designed for themselves. But most lenders have access to down payment assistance programs. They may not offer them because of compensation. They don't pay loan officers as much money on those. So for some, lenders, depending on how they're set up, they may not offer them, but they are available. So it's just a matter of, I think, experience with the loan officer, because sometimes loan officers have no idea how to do a down payment assistance program loan, and they're not certified to do it, so they won't offer it. But for the most part, again, we're all playing with the same deck of cards. It's just a matter of, does that loan officer that you're working with, do they understand the program well enough to articulate that to the client and then obviously to you as the real estate agent?
Okay, yeah, definitely true, because I've had many emails where they said, "Hey, we'll do it for you," but it doesn't explain it fully, and then here I am presenting it to my client, and then they, down the line we found out that there's these fees and these other things, and they're like, well, what did you do? And I'm, like I said, I'm just as responsible when I was getting in, uh being a newbie agent. I was like, oh well, sorry, like, but sorry sometimes doesn't cut it, because it's,
Yeah.
we're supposed to be professionals. We're held to a higher standard than just saying, hey, look, this is there.
And I think that's why a good team is again super important, because you can bounce those ideas, you can bounce those questions off of somebody. You know that when they give you an answer, it's a straight answer, and you're going to get the full picture, because sometimes these programs do have stipulations, that go along with the guidelines. So, and if you don't understand them, you might be telling the client only half the story, and then now they get all excited thinking, hey, I can go buy a house. But then once they find everything out, then they're like, oh, well, shoot, you never told me that. Right. And then
Mhm.
now you got egg
Yeah.
on your face. So yeah, it's one of those things. Guidelines change all the time. Programs come and go all the time. So you always have to be on your toes as a lender, and just making sure that, what, sometimes you do need to say, hey, let me double check, because that program could have easily changed from the last time you used it, or looked into the guidelines. So you always want to make sure that, again, you have the most relevant and current information.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to change it up on you here. What about people that are not first-time home buyers, people that are looking to invest, like move to that next step into real estate? Are there loans for those people? Sometimes people don't understand, hey, can I get a second loan or what do I do? How do I move from the position I am to the next?
Yeah. Yeah. Being an investor gets fun. You're building some wealth for your family, trying to build some passive income and some cash flow, and everyone loves those buzzwords. But I think at the end of the day, you have to understand what the goal is for yourself as an investor. You have some people that may say, well, I want to buy another house. Right, but what's the goal behind that? Why do you want another home? Are you trying to buy the home for cash flow reason? Or are you buying it for tax reasons? What's the reason that you're looking to buy the house? Because that will then determine your strategy on how you finance the home, right? Because some people may not have all of the money that's needed to buy the next property. So they'll have to maybe do a refinance or do a home equity line of credit. So now you have to qualify for two mortgages because you're taking money out of your house and you're trying to buy another one, right? So again, the
Okay.
lender has to know their numbers. The lender has to know how to qualify you because you're not just trying to do one transaction, you're doing two. And again, does that number work for what your goals are as an investor? And if it doesn't, again, you've got to either change your strategy or change the property. Property doesn't work for you. Maybe you need to find something else. So I think as you try to buy that next home, if you're looking to buy it as an investment, I think it's really working with people that understand what it takes to buy an investment property and what your goals are. Because to me, those are things that if you buy it the wrong way or you buy a property that doesn't meet the criteria or you're being sold some kind of, pie in the sky thing, it could blow up in your face. I had a friend that bought a property. It was his first rental, but he got all caught up in the Airbnb craze here in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Bought the property, had it on the market, got it in Airbnb, but he did it illegally.
Mm.
And after a couple of months, he got a fine. I think it was like $40,000.
Whoa.
And that was his first rental property.
Eesh.
Right.
And
So
and unfortunately with social media, it's there's just so many people out there trying to peddle these ideas, like you said, the pie in the sky idea, rent your home out, do this, do that, but
house hack, do
there's
all the,
no
yeah,
yeah, there's
do
no
all this stuff.
forethought to it. There's no like, let's put together a plan. It's just like you can do it. All you need is XYZ.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's understanding the risk that goes along with it, and I know sometimes uh as a buyer, you always want you almost want your ego stroked, I feel sometimes, right? Because I've had
Yeah.
conversations with clients where they don't like my answer, and I know they don't like the answer, and they may go somewhere else. But we shoot people straight. I mean, I just told a guy the other day because he asked me about, hey, should I refinance my house, pull some money out, go buy another property? And at the end of it, I said, look, in your situation, I don't think it's smart for you to refinance. That's taking money out of my pocket. I could have made money off the refinance, but I told him no. I said, you should probably sell your home because there's less risk that's going into his specific situation, right? And as a lender, I have no problem telling people what I think the best thing could be for them. Now, they obviously need to make that decision, but
Hmm.
I'm not driven by the commission, right? I could have easily told that client, hey, you know what? I think you should refi, right? I could get a deal out of it. You can go buy this rental and do all this stuff that you want, but I just felt there was just too much risk for what he was trying to do.